I said it's gonna be interesting because when we were talking on text, and you're like, "All right, I got a different movie for us to go over,
Yeah.
Long Kiss Goodnight," and I was like, "Wow, I haven't seen that in ages,
Yeah, I
like
hadn't either.
ages."
I don't think I'd seen it late 90s, early 2000s. I don't think I'd seen it.
Seriously.
I didn't think I watched. Wow, I'm sorry. Knocking my microphone around. It's gonna be noisy. My chair is too low. I'm
This is a
realizing
continuation of off-air stuff, man. Like, it adds context to the situation. Yeah.
this is better.
This is
Okay,
better.
so
Yeah, but great recommendation. And I'm watching it. I actually watched it with my daughter, who was like 11, and she was dying. She's like, the one guy curses a lot.
yeah. One of my favorite lines that I had forgotten about, but you know, back when I watched it when it first came out on video or whatever. I don't think I saw it in the theater. I think I watched it when it came out on video or went to the local video rental store for a
Yes.
VHS.
Ooh.
And anyway, be kind, rewind. Okay.
Yes, I
All right.
remember.
But I was really in love with Gina Davis back then.
Me too,
Still
man.
am. Still am. I just actually
Man.
watched because she has a new I didn't even know this was serendipitous timing for this because she just released an autobiography and anyway, so and I just happened to just see her face on the little YouTube thing, and she's on some talk show, and I was like, "Oh, Gina Davis." We're just talking about her,
Yeah.
and she's so classy. I'm
Yes.
attracted to classy.
Me too, actually. I always tell my wife, I was like, I used to have a big thing for her, man, back in the day, man. I was
Yeah,
it brought it back when I watched the movie. I was like, man,
yeah, big time, big
yeah,
time. I
big
was
time.
really jealous for Samuel L. Jackson. I was like, man, what a guy.
What a guy.
He gets to
What a
kiss
role.
her. Yeah. Oh, so I learned this recently too. I did a moderate amount of research for the for our conversation today.
Wow.
I learned that Samuel L. Jackson's character in The Long Kiss Goodnight is his favorite character he's ever portrayed on film.
No.
Yeah, that's saying a lot, man,
Wow.
because he's done a lot of characters.
That guy's
So
constantly working, I feel like.
yeah,
Constantly.
yeah, I feel like he releases, like 5 movies a year.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. That might be an exaggeration, but it just feels like he's in everything.
Everything.
And when you go back to the 90s before he was huge, um you realize he was in everything back then too. Like starting in the late 80s and into the 90s, his roles were smaller, but he was working. This guy's always been a workaholic, it seems.
Yes. Yeah, it feels like that. I remember like the first time I saw him was like I think Coming to America. And he was in that scene
Yeah.
in the McDonald's where he was trying to hold up the McDonald's. I had no clue
Yes.
who he was back then. But I was like, who is this guy? And I was like, he's hilarious.
Isn't that funny how, yeah, he might have never worked again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he has some kind of tenacity. He's not classically handsome. He's not a built guy. He's not
Right.
an action hero. He's not quite a comedian, but he's really funny. His timing
His timing.
is excellent.
He has intensity. There's some intensity
He
to him.
has intensity.
He
I
has
think that must
intensity.
be it. The classic Samuel L. intensity. Um,
Yelling everything.
yeah.
I have to say this. The part towards the end when he's like, "You can't kill me, mother Everett." I was dying. I was like, I forgot about
Yes.
that part.
He's got like blood drool dripping
Drooling.
down his. I mean, I don't know whose idea it was to have that much blood coming out of his mouth, but whose ever idea it was, give them a cookie because it just added so much to him saying that. If he would have been still looking good. Okay, so here's something about that movie that I really appreciated. Nobody comes out of it looking good after an action scene. Everybody's
No.
bloodied, black eyes, limping around. No like superhero walking away from an explosion. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's like no, no, no. Yeah, there's some super over the top sequences with Samuel L. Jackson going flying backwards through the hotel window, through the hotel sign, into a tree, and he survives. But it's not like Marvel movie survives where he gets up and he's totally fine.
Right.
It's he gets up and he's barely able to walk, but he's still going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here's another tidbit: his character was supposed to die.
Oh, really?
So that
Oh,
scene in the car, apparently, it was supposed to. And now I'm a little hazy. It feels like the last line in the car is overdubbed, and you see her bracelet hand, and she says,
yeah.
"Don't forget we're rich."
Right.
I think that must have been added later.
Hmm.
Might not even be Gina Davis's hand. I don't know. I'm just saying. I
Little
think
movie
they must have
magic.
filmed that shot later, overdubbed that line, because when they first showed that to test the test screening, Samuel L. dies. Mitch,
Mm.
his character, dies, but everybody loved Mitch so much they were
So good.
really, really disappointed that he dies. So then they added the ending where he goes on Larry David, which was also one of my favorites. I've used
So
that line
good.
so many times, so many times. What she doesn't understand is I'm always frank and earnest with all my women. In Chicago, I'm frank, and in New York, I'm earnest.
I
The
like his
best part,
laugh. And his laugh
yes,
after that
that
is
he
great.
thinks he's so funny.
He thinks he's amazing.
It feels genuine. I wonder if he's really laughing and they just use that take,
Right.
you know?
I just love
Because
that. How corny was it? And I was like, this is genius. Like, I think he really meant this. Like,
yes. There's a lot of things in that movie where less would have been more. All of the preview, like dream sequences, cut all those out.
yeah.
Where she's like seeing her other alter ego,
Right.
Charlie, coming out.
Charlie. Yeah.
Cut all those out. Just let us watch Charlie emerge. I don't know what word you want to use, organically.
Right.
Something
Organically.
corny,
Let's see your
corny like
transformation
that.
happen, like
Yeah, in real time. No, none of that cornball
you
dream
don't have to
sequence.
tell us. Like it's gonna
Yes. Cut
happen,
all
right?
that
Yeah.
out. Cut out the very end scene where she's happy with her family. We already had her in the car with the president. We know she's good. We know she's all good. End it with Samuel L. Jackson saying his Frank and
Yes.
Ernest joke.
Yes.
Just end it right there. And then get rid of that 90s alt rock song that they start the credits with.
Simon.
You know what I mean? It's just like less is more, less is more with certain things like this, because this movie is super over the top. It's super cornball in so many ways, but it toes this weird line of being so entertaining in the
Yeah.
way that Commando is entertaining.
Yes. Yes.
But it could have been everyone, I think critics, everyone could have taken this film a little more seriously, I feel like, if they would have cut some of those
Yeah.
completely unnecessary scenes, and we would have had something that felt a little bit more like the Bourne Identity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. What's interesting, I was like, you were right when we were texting about Samuel Jackson. I was like, oh yeah. And you said it's like one of his best performances. I was like, why don't I remember that aspect of it? Like, why don't and but I realized there were so many missing pieces to that movie to me, because this is what a great thing about the conversation we have. We're going back and watching old movies now. They're considered old movies,
Yeah.
like timeline
This is like a
wise.
38-year or
Right.
36-year-old movie, or
I mean, think of like
26,
Simon and
26-year old
I are
movie.
like 8 when these things came out.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't
So
that
like
funny?
our 8-year-old selves are watching this through a lens, and now our mid 40-year-old selves are like, wait a minute, right?
What?
What
What?
was that?
Did that
What?
happen?
Like,
Yeah.
and like I'm watching the scene where Samuel is, well, excuse my language, but he was like ass fuckery, and he's like, oh, I'm dying. When I was a kid, I did not laugh at that part. I don't remember laughing at that part. I was like,
You don't quite get the joke yet,
no,
but I
I
mean,
don't get it, man.
this had to come out before. When did Reservoir? No, not Reservoir. Sorry. When did Pulp Fiction come out?
Oh my gosh. Wasn't that the 90s? That was like the
It
90s,
was
right?
90s, but
Was it mid
was it
90s?
before this or after? Because
Ah,
what I'm trying to do in my mind is figure out when did the classic Samuel L. Jackson monologues begin?
okay. Okay.
Because unfortunately this movie was more or less ignored. Now I think it has kind of a cult following.
Yeah,
Um, but at the time, totally panned. I don't think anybody knew what to do with this movie.
right.
We didn't have the Bourne Identity yet.
Right.
So this, and it's not like this is some super unique, plot. And it's
Yeah.
when you really boil it down, it's really quite stupid. They're gonna
Simon.
set off this bomb and blow up all these people just for their government
Yeah.
uh budgets. Sorry, to be able to get their budgeting, which I mean, yeah, I'll go with it.
I'll
I
go
mean,
with it.
I'll go with it. I'll just be like,
Yeah.
sure, you guys are gonna you plan to kill 4,000. That's what they say, 4,000 people
Yeah.
to get your budget increase or to keep your budget or whatever. And I thought it was so funny that it must have been a Democrat
It
president.
has
They don't
election written
say
all
it.
over it. I'm like,
Yeah. But he says, but they ask, where's our budget going to go if you take our budget away? And he says, healthcare.
yeah.
I was like, wow. I mean, they, like I say, they never say it. What party is in, but he's definitely a Democrat, isn't he?
Yeah, for sure. See, that stuff like would just go way above me when at that age, at 8,
Yeah.
9, 10. It's like, why would you even care
Well,
about that?
this was 96. So we
Oh,
were
wait a
old.
minute. No, yeah, this
So
was
we're like
I
we're like
I was
18,
96. I
19.
was graduating high school then.
Yep.
I still didn't think about
That's the year I did graduate. Yeah.
it.
But yeah, I wasn't thinking about those kinds of things at the time,
No, yeah.
how much of
Like, why
our
would you?
budget went to, yeah, the military and how much went to healthcare. I didn't care.
No,
Like,
the youth.
yeah, I was like, is that girl paying attention to me? That's all I cared
You're like,
about.
Gina Davis is hot. That's really what I care about. Like,
That's
there's something
all.
there.
That is all.
100%.
Um, the stunts in this, I mean, there are green screens and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of wire work and
Right.
people really jumping out of buildings. And here's another tidbit. Samuel L. Jackson and Gina Davis actually do get into the ice and the ice broken ice of the lake to get that emerging
Yeah.
out of the
It looks
water
real though when
look.
you watch it. I mean, it's like,
It is real, and they
yeah.
had to do it a few times to get the take, and so they had to keep going back in that icy water. And
Yikes. I appreciate the
yeah,
realism behind that though. Like, it's,
yeah,
it's kind of like we are saying with if you guys watched the episode with Wind River, it's like you can tell it's actually cold. Like
yes,
it's not, this isn't a crazy thing. It's real.
yes. It reminded me of the movie Jackie Chan's First Strike. Do you remember that
Yeah,
one? He
yeah.
skis off and he grabs the helicopter, and then he sees the missiles coming at the helicopter, so he lets go of the helicopter. He falls into the lake below. And yeah, he's really in there too, and they show him in the outtakes going back into the water and like breaking through the ice. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so cold. So when
Yeah.
he comes out of that water and you see him just, freezing, he's no acting
It's a
required.
real reaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be bad at that. I would be done. They'd be getting the realest you can get from me, man.
I've never fallen through the ice like that, but I grew up in Alaska, so I've been in a lot of
Yeah.
water. Um, cold water that like makes your muscles cramp up, and it can be
Yeah.
very dangerous. But yeah, I've never fallen through a frozen lake like that. I
I can
never
imagine that.
never
That
want
seems
to
so
either.
cold. And actually, see, you make me think of this stuff. When I saw that scene, I was like, that looked real. Like normally I didn't care about that, but I'm like,
Yeah,
Simon would probably think that looks real. I was
that
like,
does look real. I mean, I appreciate movies that go the extra mile, and I appreciate actors who are willing to go the extra mile. That scene of them popping out of the water lasts maybe a second.
yeah.
They pop up out of the water, they do a really quick cut, and then
Right.
they're gone, and they don't even show them getting up out of the water. anything like that. So for a second of footage, they went through a lot to get
Yeah.
that. So I just really appreciate all that. And
Yeah.
that comes from us watching the old school action movies where it was a matter of professional pride to do these things
Right.
and to do as much of them as you possibly can,
Without
you
the
know?
doubles, right? You're talking
Yeah,
about like and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could have very easily filmed it from a different angle, had a stunt
Yeah.
woman, stunt man in there, doubling them and just not had their faces,
Yeah.
showing so much. Could have easily done all that. The actors could have easily requested that
Requested it. Yeah. Yeah. Be like, I'm not doing
for
that.
that split second. We as an audience maybe would have never even given it a second thought,
Yeah.
but since we do see their faces so well, it's like, oh wow,
They actually
yeah.
did that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It was enjoyable though. Like I really liked I watched it and I was like, man, I'm glad I watched this. Like I don't think I would have ever even thought of watching this movie again if we weren't doing this.
This is one of these movies that has it's not like constantly on my mind, but every
Yeah.
now and again I think about this movie. And I think it's because I was so in love with Gina Davis at the time that it had such an impact on me. And I mean, I did think Samuel L. Jackson's character was the coolest character.
Yeah.
I love There's a Wonderful Moment. And this is written by Shane Black.
Oh, the
For
the
those,
Predator, right? Like
yeah,
yeah.
he wrote Predator. Or no, he didn't write Predator, but he was in
He
Predator.
was in it, yeah.
But he wrote, Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
He loves Christmas.
That dude loves
So
Christmas, man.
yeah, a lot of his movies involve Christmas in some way or another, just but anyway, I've seen movies that he's written that were total crap,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I think the last Predator movie, he wrote that one too, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I know.
And I, I I've never read the script. I don't know how closely they kept to the script. I don't know if it's directing and producing that got in the way of that movie being good at all. But certain aspects of the story definitely feel like Shane Black,
Yeah. Yeah.
where, the kid gets mailed the suit and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
because he wrote the second Iron Man movie, I
Oh,
believe,
did he? I
right?
didn't know that.
So, and there's a kid in that one, who like helps him fix his suit or
Yeah.
something. I can't remember now,
Hmm.
and that one happens at Christmas time, I believe,
Fixation with
right?
Christmas, man.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
That's
gonna have
like,
that too when we're doing Christmas movies here coming up.
I know,
It's gonna be
exactly.
amazing. I'm all about Christmas, especially
But
Die Hard during Christmas. Like I was telling you, it's like, does
oh,
Die Hard count? I was like,
that's exactly. Oh man. See, these are the great action Christmas movies. Um, and of course, Jingle All the Way.
Jingle. I actually watched that last year. I watched it last year with my daughter. I'm like, what?
I just don't even know if I can ever again.
It's weird, man. I got to be honest. It's kind of weird.
It's a weird movie. I mean, I actually really love the interplay of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad,
Yeah, yeah,
but there's so many moments. And how can you go wrong where you fight an army of Santas? I
right.
mean, that's all great. Everything's really, and then Phil Hartman
Yo, my
seducing his
gosh,
wife, and like, you know,
the creepy,
I,
friendly neighbor. It's like,
yeah, it was just like, don't worry, taking care of Christmas over here for
all
you,
right.
buddy. We got
Yeah.
it in the bag.
I mean, it's
Um,
funny because he's basically a bad dad. He's like a
yeah,
terrible father, and the transformation. That's Arnold's thing. It's like this transformation, into a
yeah.
better person. You know.
Speaking of that, I was gonna, I got sidetracked, but my favorite scene, um, is Samuel L. Jackson telling the story about when he's a cop
Yeah.
and he's like, my partner, was gone, and then, lo and behold, coincidentally, there's a tip off. Then they go and they find these stolen bonds in my
Right.
closet. And she's like, he framed you. He's like, no, I stole that.
Yeah, yeah. It's how he delivers it, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but they flip that, story on its head. This isn't a guy who's been down on his luck. This is a genuinely, a person who makes bad choices.
Right.
Genuinely, he's not a great guy. Um, but they find a way in that moment, and that's good writing on Shane Black's part, where you find a way in that moment to make being a bad person very relatable and
Yeah.
very now you're rooting for him even more because and he says it so much better because he's Samuel L. Jackson, but he says, I've never done anything right in my whole life.
Right.
And I can't remember what he says, something about like how amazing that is to not do
Yeah.
anything right your whole life, and of course, it's Hollywood movies, so there's always, payoff for people saying that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's so good, and he makes kind of stupid, corny moments
Yeah.
okay because Samuel L. Jackson is so good. When the bridge blows up and the cars are falling, and the girl says, "Don't hit the cars," and he gives her that look.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
that scene could be so stupid, but because Samuel L. Jackson gives that look, it's worth it. The
Right.
scene
You
is
don't have to
worth it.
say it. It's like you know what he would say if he said something, but he just gives her that look, that Samuel intent, the intensity. Again,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
brings intensity non-verbally and verbally. And it almost seems like, honestly, it just seems like he's playing himself on some level too. Like if you met him, that maybe he's probably like that on some level.
Maybe. I don't
I
know.
don't
Yeah.
know.
He seems, when I see him talk, so I'm a huge Magic Johnson fan.
Okay. Well, you're a big Lakers guy too, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well,
yeah,
I'm a Lakers guy because of Magic Johnson.
right.
Magic Johnson came first, and then he's on the Lakers, so I got to be a Lakers
Simon, the
guy,
team's
right?
terrible again. Just wanted to put that out there. I mean,
Let's see. They're like 2-8.
they're bad.
Pretty good.
Bad again. Like again, they're bad again. Let's put that out there.
Somebody asked me recently what my thoughts on LeBron James are.
Yeah.
And I told them, LeBron James is having a terrible season so far. And he's averaging like 26,
Yeah.
6-6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's terrible for somebody, what does that say?
What does
I
that
mean,
say?
that would be somebody's dream to average those numbers,
Yeah.
and he's having a bad season. He's playing terribly to LeBron standards.
Yeah.
So, you know, say like him or dislike him, but that dude
He's
is
an
hands
amazing player
down one of the greatest athletes to ever walk the earth.
for sure.
Hands down,
Hands down. Yeah.
So I don't care if the Lakers win or lose, but it disheartens me that somebody of that caliber has to be on this team.
Yeah.
It's so disheartening that they gave up so much of that team that won the championship just a couple years
Yeah.
ago because they didn't want to pay them.
Right. It's the
And
Lakers.
all
I mean,
those
come on.
players have gone are that they let go of are doing great on these other teams, and
Of
they're
course.
contributing and they're doing so well. And we have these guys are all professionals, so I'm not
Yeah.
trying to put anybody down. But if you compare the lineup that the Lakers have now compared to the lineup that they had when they won the championship, and then they didn't want to pay anybody afterwards, so they got rid of them all. I mean, it's just a joke.
How do you really feel about this, Simon?
It's just a doggone joke.
It's a joke.
There's maybe 4 guys in that lineup that deserve a contract with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Right.
If they were on the Washington Wizards, fine.
Sure.
Those
Sure.
are all great guys for the Washington Wizards, but this is the Los Angeles
Right.
Lakers, the most winning franchise in NBA history. These guys don't belong on this roster.
Right. I agree. I
It's
agree.
crazy. It's so
I'm sure
crazy.
Magic Johnson has plenty of opinions about it too.
He's like, I brought LeBron James over for this.
Exactly. I mean, you're barely better than the Clippers. Not even that. I mean, it's like,
Oh man, it's gotten to the point where I want the Clippers to beat the Lakers because you know what I mean? It's just
yeah,
like I just want Rob Pelinka to just sit in the mire that
yeah,
he's created.
it's true, man. It's true. Everybody's opinion. I mean, you have this greatness. How do you screw up the Lakers? I don't know. It's like pay them. You have the money. Come on. It's like
You have the money, who doesn't want to play for the Los Angeles
right.
Lakers? You know what I mean? But it seems like nobody right now.
It actually seems like no one right now.
But I tell you, I get so happy when a team like Utah is doing
Yeah.
so well.
Right.
Utah has no superstars on it. These are all the blue collar, working class NBA players.
Yeah.
They have talent, but they win by working hard and playing together.
Sure.
And then you have the Los Angeles Lakers who, have Russell Westbrook.
What do you have to
Turn
say bad about Russ? Come on.
So, I mean, if you dish out 8 assists, but then you turn the ball over 7 times,
Is that a
you've
cancellation?
disqualified yourself. Yeah, you've disqualified yourself from being a point guard. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you got to turn the ball over if you're
Sure.
if you're the point guard. Okay, you're gonna have turnovers, but give me four.
Right. Yeah.
Give me 4 turnovers and 8 assists, and then I'll be like, okay, that's a stat we can work with.
He's coming off the bench now, though. It's okay.
I mean, his first couple games off the bench, he was an
It's
all-star.
actually working well for him coming off the bench, maybe.
Yeah, but I just he's just the worst decision maker
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
game.
It's
In the
true.
game.
It's true. He's bad with the ball, honestly. It's
Uh, But it's such a predicament because he can't shoot. So he can't be a 2 or a 3.
no.
So you're just stuck with him at the point guard. And now so you're stuck with somebody running the team when he's out there who's the worst decision maker in the game.
It's true, man.
And you would think, I mean, he's been playing like 15 years. I don't know. What's he been playing
Yeah, a
for?
long time, man. Yeah, he's got to be up there at this point. He's like 33, 34, I think.
You would just think his
No.
basketball IQ at this point would be so much better.
No.
I think there might be something of ADHD
Could
about him.
be. I was a big Westbrook fan for a long time, man. When he was on OKC, I'm talking huge Westbrook
Yeah.
fan. And then he started being on like a team a year. He became
Yeah.
a team a year guy. And I was
Yeah.
like, he's making bad decisions. It's just.
Everybody figured out and last year for the Lakers was really it was just like everybody saw through the facade at that point
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a reason OKC could never quite win
Mm-hmm.
because they have the worst decision maker in the NBA. He might be the hardest worker,
Right.
but he's also the worst decision maker.
What does that mean in life? And are we
Hard
talking
work.
about the election or not? What's this? It sounds like there's a lot of crossover
hard,
here.
hard work will only get you so far. You
You
know
got
what
to
I'm
make good
saying?
decisions.
You gotta there has to be something within you that I think we mentioned it a few episodes back. Life math. You have to
Life
be able to
math.
do life math, and if you
Yes.
can't do it, all your hard work is for naught. And that
Life
is
math.
the sad case of Russell Westbrook. He's probably going to retire, never winning a championship in the NBA. And that's not the biggest deal in the world. He's had a
Yeah.
successful career anyway. He's an amazing athlete. He's you can say so many great things about Russell Westbrook,
Yeah.
but if there's one player in the NBA right now who I think has defeated himself, kept himself from winning,
Yeah.
it's Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. You know what's weird though? He seems to have made a lot of great decisions in his personal life. Like he seems to be a genuinely good human and makes good decisions. What's the basketball part? Like,
I
how
don't
did
know.
that happen?
His wife, I think, is a counselor or a psych.
Something like that. But
She
they seem to
works
have a great
in the
thing.
psychiatric field in some way, in mental health. She in some way. So she must really balance him
Yeah.
when he's off the court, because whenever I see him being interviewed or when I see him play basketball, I see somebody who's not good at making decisions.
Yeah.
He's not good at deciding how to interact with reporters, how to talk to people. He's not good at interacting with his team on the court.
Yeah.
And you see it, the most disheartening thing as a fan watching a game is to see other players disappointed with what their teammate is doing.
Right. Right. Yeah. I know. It's like you can see it on their face. They're like, no.
Yeah.
Oh. But he has the intensity. See, this is a great segue or comparison to Samuel Jackson. See, I consider Samuel Jackson to have a very similar Westbrook intensity, but he makes better decisions in his professional
Makes
career.
great
It
decisions.
seems like he has a very good personal life as well. That I don't think he shares a lot of it, but he seems to have got it on both ends. Westbrook seems to have a very good personal life, but he's making terrible professional decisions. So he's like not harnessing the intensity properly. Whereas Samuel,
Yeah.
I think, is harnessing his intensity beautifully.
And from what I can tell, yeah, I think some actors bring that intensity because that's who they are in real life. And then other
Yeah.
times I think actors who are super chill in real life, they're able to bring that because it's so fun
Fun.
to do
Yeah.
something you wouldn't do,
Yeah.
to talk to people in a way that you would never talk to them. And
Right.
I don't know Samuel L. Jackson at all.
Sure.
Nothing about
We
him.
definitely don't know
I
him.
brought up Magic Johnson originally because they're such good friends.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They go like on these trips to Europe all the time, like their families, travel together and stuff like that.
Okay.
Magic Johnson's epic European vacations are stuff of
Mm.
legend. Not that he's like, burning down, Paris or something like that because he's partying so hard, but just that, he just takes a month or 2 months out of the year and just enjoys Europe. And he
Yeah.
brings his close friends like LL Cool J, Samuel
Sure.
L. Jackson,
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so what that says to me is that Samuel L. Jackson is a really fun hang,
Right.
because Magic Johnson isn't going to hang out with somebody who is, a jerk.
Right.
That's just not Magic Johnson's,
Yeah.
MO.
Yeah. He's a
He's
fun
Mr.
guy.
Positive.
Yeah.
He's, he wants to have fun. He wants to. So anyway, so that's my read on Samuel Jackson, just because he's guilty by association with Magic Johnson of being a really great guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think he must be having so much fun when he gets to play a character that is so terrible
Yeah.
and says these, and he gets to do these short monologues that are just so intense and things like
Yeah.
that. It's so great,
Actually, you know what? It's funny. Like, you've on this podcast shared a lot about yourself, and this
Right.
this whole segment is partially like a tiny percentage part of birthing everything I hate about me. Tiny percentage. You
Yeah.
obviously you're a genius when it comes to making all this stuff, but like for me personally, I want to be the hang guy. Like I want to be the guy people want to hang out with.
Yeah.
That's like a big thing for me because I value that in other people. Like if I meet somebody and I'm thinking, man, this would be pretty boring to spend time with this person.
Yeah.
Like it just really like it decreases, not like there could be a great person, but I don't want that level with them. But I want that level with people. So I
Yeah.
I want to like be, I guess I'm looking at I want to be perceived and it's genuine, the hang guy. I want to be enjoyable to other people,
Yeah.
you know?
I no, I think there's something, to that. Um I've never tried to be mysterious or off. I don't know, like
Right.
off-putting or whatever you want to phrase it.
Sure.
Um, but I've been told that not, maybe not mysterious is the wrong word, but that I'm standoffish
Really?
sometimes. Yeah, just in crowds or groups.
Hmm.
Um, or that people get a vibe that I don't. Maybe a little bit of a, a curmudgeon vibe, which which to me is hilarious because I don't think of myself as a curmudgeon at all. I think of
No.
myself as a person with strong opinions,
Okay.
and I think of myself as a person who doesn't like to waste time. So if somebody, and I don't like wasting time, and I don't like expendable things,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So I don't like to buy junk, cheap crap.
Yeah.
So people think I'm a curmudgeon about the holidays because I don't want to buy, a bunch of strings of lights made in China and hang them up on my, in my house. I'm just like, why? I mean, give me one reason why I should do that. And people are like, well,
Yeah.
it's Christmas. It's like, so what?
It's the curmudgeon part.
You know? And I'm
So
just, yeah. And be like, well, that's what you do at Christmas. Says who?
yeah, see, yes. Yes. The questioning.
That's it. I mean, I'm just like, give me one way in which hanging up a string of cheap lights made in China celebrates Jesus.
It doesn't. Come on.
Just give me a freaking break. Give me one way in which that stupid Santa ornament that, once again made in Taiwan or some other,
No.
place, is celebrating Christmas. I mean, I don't care about this crap. I love holidays. I really
Yeah.
do. I love spending time with my kids. There are certain things I just love to do, like cookie making,
Right.
things that involve, people being together and having fun together. When's the last time anybody had fun hanging
No.
decorations with their family?
No. No
That's
way,
the
man.
most frustrating thing.
It's not great, honestly. It's not. Which is why I refuse to put up lights outside of my house ever.
There you go.
I've not done it. I feel the effort is not worth it. It's
Yeah.
just how I feel about it, man. I'm just like, this is just a lot of work for something I'm really never gonna look at. Honestly, I'm gonna turn on it. I don't know. It just seems. And then the worst part is everybody I talk to that does it, they never want to take it down because of the effort behind it and stuff.
Yep.
I'm like, it just seems inefficient for me. I know that sounds bad, but I don't know.
It's completely inefficient. If people wanted to light some candles in your window for
Sure.
some tradition or something like that, hey, some, cool, whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm not against other people doing whatever they want to do. I
Sure.
don't look at somebody else's house that they have lights on it and think, oh, well, you
Yeah, I
wasting
don't
your
either.
time. All
No.
this, you guys, you celebrate. But when people come to me, they ask, why don't you do that? And they're acting like I'm doing something wrong because Jim Gaffigan put it so perfectly when he talked about Christmas trees. And he said it's the actions of a drunk person. And he's like, he's imitating maybe the first person to drag a tree into their house, and the wife is like, "Hey, what's this? It's like, just put this tree here. We're gonna put the lights on it. That is for Jesus." This is so stupid. It's
Yeah.
so dumb. So these are the things that people think I'm curmudgeon about
Yeah.
because I don't want to do it.
Right. Right.
I feel, but last night we got a jump start on the holidays. A friend of mine made this amazing pumpkin pie with this
Mm.
almond crust.
Ooh.
So for dinner last night, we had pumpkin pie, ice cream, eggnog, and whipped cream. Man, I mean, it
There you
was.
go, man.
Here's a secret for you. One former health professional to another. My post workout smoothie today was a small slice of that pumpkin pie into the blender with eggnog and then some milk, 2 scoops of vanilla whey,
I love it.
mixed berries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, and chia seeds.
Yeah. Throwing some chia seeds in there.
Best post-workout smoothie I think I've ever had.
Oh my gosh.
So good.
This
So
curmudgeon
good.
thing for me is a strange thing about you. But maybe it is just because I've gotten to know you in a very different way. And
Yeah.
we're spending all this time. And so I think about like, how does someone think about you or me when they just meet us in a
Mhm.
random setting? They're observing. How would they even know about you or me if they never saw us like this?
Yeah. When
Like
you don't, you do have to hang.
you gotta hang. That's the thing is there's gotta be a hang. And my thing is like I want people to feel like they feel open to hanging with me. And so then they're like, oh, okay, like this feels good, like
Yeah.
it seems like a really easygoing person, easy to get along with. I subscribe to that.
I try to be that. I think I am that.
I think you
I
are.
think
I feel
yeah.
that with you. I
Yeah.
feel that.
And but and then but then I have strong opinions, and I
Yes.
feel like it's something that the older I get, the more comfortable I am
Yeah.
voicing strong opinions. I'm not worried about burning bridges. I'm not worried about this, that, or the other. It's like I really don't care. I like just about everybody I've
Yeah.
ever met. I there's very few people on this earth that I genuinely don't like.
I feel the same about that. Yeah. I
And
could count
so
like two people where I was like, it's a bad person. Like,
yeah,
like
yeah, this
bad
is
person.
some bad, yeah.
Yeah.
But genuinely, on the flip side of that is that I don't care if they like me.
I love it.
My self-worth is there's no basis on whether or not somebody likes me, and
Right.
that's I think a blessing of ego or something. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe slightly sociopathic or something, where you don't care if the other person likes you, but I enjoy liking other people.
Yeah. This is a
So
here we go.
well, I'm just saying, to your point,
Right.
I enjoy this mano a mano,
Sure.
small group, something like that. I enjoy deep, meaningful conversation. I don't like small talk. I
Yeah.
want to skip the small talk right away.
Yeah, I'm
And
the
I've
same
been
way.
known for asking some absurd things in order to just get the small talk out of the way. I once, it was so funny. I was hanging out with my band. This is back in Portland, hanging out with my band after a show, and we're outside. It's summertime, and we're outside of a place in really well known place in Portland called Voodoo Donut downtown. And I'm meeting this person for the first time, and I ask him. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to get to know people.
Yeah.
I just I asked him, when's the last time you were in love?
You just
Uh, one of my bandmates looks at me like I'm crazy. It's like, you just met this person. You guys have barely even said hello to each other.
it could be a
But I'm just
pickup
gonna
line.
skip.
It could be,
Yeah.
like when's the last time you were in love?
So, when's the last time you were in love?
Right? I mean, honestly, you got to know that sounds a little weird to people.
but now we've skipped all that small bull crap because we're all the way into when's the last time you were in love, right?
Yeah. And then they skip to the part where they go, is this a creepy guy? Is this
Yeah.
like
And there's like, okay, either this guy is really fun or I got to get away from him immediately.
and I think you're okay with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. Totally
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I tell a lot of lies to people that I'm pretty sure I'll never meet again,
What?
just to make things interesting.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I
I
got to
want
hear this.
I want people to have a memorable experience, so I will just say stuff.
I can't take it right. Wait, I just heard that come out of you. I tell a lot of lies to people.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? you know,
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, there's
Oh,
billions of people in the world. Chances
oh,
are, if chances are I'll never see this person again, and we're talking, I might say anything. I mean, there's no holds barred.
like what?
Um,
What's your best James Bond impersonation?
okay, here's actually a delightful one.
Okay.
I was dressed as a mime. No, a clown.
Okay.
Oh, a clown. Wasn't my idea. A really great friend of mine back in Portland had this wonderful idea. He and his wife come over for dinner and we're hanging out, and he turns to me and he says, he called me Simon. So he says, Simon, well, you call me Simon too. I forget. Anyway, he said, Simon, what do you think about dressing up as mimes and going downtown? And I'm like, I mean, I'm into it, but he's like, what if we get a bunch of people together and we all dress as mimes? And it would be like a mime squad or something. And I said, a mime brigade. And he says, ooh, I like that. So we did a mime brigade. And then we followed it up a year later or something like that with a clown brigade.
What's going on
Just
here?
scare the heck out of people. Anyway, we finish our clown brigade and I'm heading home and I'm gonna get on the train to go home.
Oh no.
I'm at the train station and these beautiful, gorgeous young ladies show up at the train station. They are all dressed to the nines. They are obviously heading downtown where I was just leaving to go clubbing or whatever. Turns out it's one of their somebody's 21st birthday, and so they're gonna go party. Uh, but when they see me, they say, "Hey, do something clowny." And I look at them completely straight face, and I ask, "What do you mean?" And they're like, do like a clown trick or something. And I ask them, "Why would I do a clown a clown
I
trick?"
know where this is going.
You get it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
eventually, they ask, well, why are you dressed like a clown? It's like, this is just how I dress. And they're like, you just dress like this, like every day? And I say, yeah, this is just what I dress like. This is how I like to dress. We get conversing. These are there's like five of them. They're all
Yeah.
so sweet. I tell them that I'm going to meet this girl. We're going on our first date, and I really hope that she's the one.
What's going on, man?
And they're like, does she know you and that you dress like this? Oh, and I say, oh, yeah, she's seen me around the office. And I really put on I really pull at their heartstrings
Yeah.
because I say, I'll be 50 soon. I was only like 35, I think. I don't know. I was like, I'll be 50 soon, and I've never had a girlfriend, so I really hope this goes well.
Oh
And they're
my
just like, oh, and I just keep going with it, and they are so in love with me by the end of
yeah.
this whole thing. And the train comes and they're just giving me all these hugs. And one girl, she's holding me extra tight and she just whispers in my ear, she says, I hope she is the one. You deserve happiness.
This is before they started drinking, right? It
This
was
is
like
before they start drinking. These are completely sober. They're just heading downtown. But now they have this great story to tell that they
because
met
of
this
you.
guy who just dresses like a clown every day, and he's going to try and meet the girl that he so it's just stuff like that. It's harmless.
Stuff like that.
It's harmless. It's to amuse myself,
Yes.
and it's so that somebody else goes away with this great story that they can tell other people
Yeah.
and
They
perpetuate
told a
this
bunch of
lie.
people, right?
Oh
You know
yeah.
they told. It was like one of the
They-
first things they told them.
They're probably still telling that story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Can we find those ladies?
I want to
Like,
find out how many people they've told this story to,
right.
and
And
then
watch
I want
this.
to.
This is not a 50-year-old clown. Like,
No,
actually, it could be. He actually could be a clown at 50 when he turns.
maybe, yeah.
You know.
I've got 5 years
You
to. How
got some
long does clown
time.
school take? Is
That's a
there an
different level.
accelerated program?
Yeah, yeah. That's a different level. See, I probably would never do that. It's not like I couldn't do it. I just don't think I would even think of it. Like it's like
Yeah.
this is a different thing with you, Simon.
It's living theatrically.
Yes. Yes. You have life math down too.
I I don't know if I have life math down. In some ways, maybe, but I think I have life theatrics down, which is really funny because people they just see a really chill
Yeah.
person, right? I'm so chill, and I don't think most people would until they get to know me a lot better would understand the
Yeah.
theatricality that is within me,
Yeah.
and that I am constantly a character wanting to come out. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
um, I love acting like different people. I just do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why your podcast is so good, I think, is because you put on this voice and this character, which is you. I mean, but it
It's a
has a
part. It's a
real
side of me.
right. It has a real theatrical vibe to it. It's like a
I,
one man show.
I
Everything
like
is
that.
Simon, you know? It's funny,
There's
it's
Simon. There's
quirky.
Eli. And there's
Yeah.
yeah.
There's music, there's self-deprecation, there's all these different experience. I think it's like a full spectrum of being a human is what your show is about.
Oh man, I love that. That's what I that if there's anything that I just want to define myself as, it's just human.
Yeah.
I don't care about being and it's not that I don't love these things, but I
Yeah.
don't care about being American Christian, Alabaman. I definitely don't care about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, white guy, blonde hair, none of that stuff uh, matters. I love being human,
Yeah.
which is one of the we're spilling over to religion. Ready?
It's always happens, man.
One of the things that really turns me off about religiosity is this longing for another existence
Yeah.
away from this one. It's the same thing that turns me off about politics.
Yeah.
This longing to be a different nation or a different, yes, we should all be wanting to improve who we are as individuals, societies, nations, what have you. But you have one side that wants to say, oh, we want to make things great again. So we have to change back to what we were. And you have another side that says, we were always shit.
Yeah.
We've always been shit.
Yeah.
And unless we change, we'll always be shit. And I just think those two extremes really turn me off.
Yeah. Yeah. It turns me off too, man.
I love my existence. And I know that comes from a place of privilege because I have a very privileged existence. A lot of people in the world don't have the wonderful existence that I enjoy. But I love being a human right here, right
Yeah.
now. And I don't feel the need to transcend to another existence. Things are just great as they are.
Yeah. Yeah. You always have good takes, man. I got to tell you. it's like a it's like a adventure with you because there's like all these different takes and they're all like one's moving this direction and the other take's going over here, then one's going up here. It's like wait, the arrow went here, boom, went over there. Wait a minute, what did you just say? Like
In a way, I understand that ADHD that accused Russell Westbrook.
yeah, you're like
Thing.
intensity, bad decision making. like
Well, because you and I are so easygoing, I don't think people clue into how intense you and I are. You know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think people clue in probably to how intense your mind is, but I knew it from the get go because
Thank you.
of this whole, just from the podcast that you're doing.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, just curiosity.
Yeah.
When I meet another curious human, somebody who shares the kind of curiosity that I have to just want to learn about everything,
Yeah.
not just one thing. It's like this world is amazing. I want to learn about everything
Yes.
and everyone's story. Once you start listening to them, everyone has a great story.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone.
Everyone literally. And I think like this has definitely rubbed off on me, like doing this. Like I find this like shifting. And I was telling Michelle, my wife, I was like, talking to Simon's been good because I feel like again, the spirituality religion thing, I feel like I've never met someone who was in the same space as me in that aspect.
Mm.
Like I was telling somebody this other day, I can vehemently be opposed to the church's view on lesbian, gay, transgender. This is wrong, but still believe and have both those things could be part of my life. And I just don't see a lot of that. It's like, well, nope, you can't question that. This is part of the deal. I'm like, yeah, but it's not. It's
Boy,
just
is it
not.
not.
Why are we, why? And I said something, I think we said to the person, I was like, I actually think God wants us to question these things. I really do. I know that's a very different take, but it's a hot take. But man, it's to me, it's the take that requires the most amount of critical thinking and courage because you're going up against an opposition that says everything is true. There's
Yes.
no variance. I just don't believe in that. I could still believe and have a lot of questions and say,
Every parent is different. So, but I think your parenting and my parenting are very similar in that we love it when our kids show their own curiosity
yeah,
and their own ability to think deeply, and we don't care so much about them being wrong
yeah,
so long as if they're thinking. It's when my children are thoughtless that I get so frustrated
right.
when they do things without thinking. That's when I get frustrated. I can only imagine God watching people. This is going to sound like an accusation of all religious people. It's not meant to be. But when I see people who say it's true because it says it's true, and they're all going to into that building
Yeah,
and they're all believing that this thing is true because the thing that they say is true itself says it's true. That's the proof,
that's the proof. Yeah,
you know. It's like the book is true because the book says so.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right,
So when that's your proof, that's what you're going with. I think God must be so disappointed.
right.
He's like,
Exactly.
I gave you this whole world, I gave you this brain, I gave you all these synapses that can fire at any given time. All you have to do is put your mind in motion and pick up that book about Syrian history,
Sure.
stuff like that, and all of a sudden the Bible becomes less true and a lot more interesting.
Right. Right.
you know
I don't know. It just feels like it's okay to question things and be curious. It's like in my mind, I've told my wife this, there is no way in my thought process that God would ever hate people who had different sexual preferences
yeah,
or would care about that. Like seriously, really, that seems so ridiculous to me. Like, but yet it is defended vehemently by people with it's just it doesn't make sense to me.
I was talking to my son. My children have grown up so differently than I grew up.
Yeah.
Obviously they grew up, by comparison, in a very liberal household, um, and especially with me. But I had to come to that on my own,
Yeah.
and because it wasn't taught to me. Nobody came to me and with these ideas. So anyway, I was telling my son about the moment, and I said, unfortunately, this moment didn't happen until like my early to mid 20s,
Yeah.
where the thought finally crossed my brain. It wasn't random. I was thinking about it. I was concentrated on it because gay marriage was a huge topic at the time. And I just thought to myself, in the eternal scheme of things, who cares? What what are the consequences of, let's just say, a man wanting to be with a man in heaven? When and the more I thought about it, the more it unraveled to the point where I just had to say, wow, all Christianity is a bunch of bunk. I mean, literally. No, literally. I mean, it just kind of happened in that way. And I don't mean that every teaching is bad, but like you said, we can live within this paradox.
Yeah.
I love Jesus. I love the teachings of Jesus.
Yes.
He never once said one dude plus another dude is bad.
Right.
That's just not in the New Testament.
It's just not.
Jesus never talks about these things. Why? Because they're not as important as a lot of people want to think they are.
Right.
Maybe they're not of any importance whatsoever. And the important thing is what Jesus said, love thy neighbor. So that's what my son and I were just talking about. And I just said, I don't think God cares what religion you're in. I don't think God cares if you believe in God, which completely disqualifies the Old Testament to me. Sorry,
right.
everybody.
Yeah.
But the Old Testament is a story of a God trying to prove he's God.
Right.
That's the whole Old Testament. The entire Old Testament is God trying to prove he's God. Yahweh trying to prove he's God. So when you release yourself from that and you just do what Jesus said, love thy neighbor. And I was mentioning to my son, and when he taught that, it was part of that teaching was the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
The important thing about that is the Samaritan is not only a different country, it's actually Samaritans, and a lot of people don't know this, so I'll just bring it up. They're actually the remnants of the other 10 tribes.
Right.
And they have a bad relationship with Judah and the Jewish people. Terrible relationship. So not only are they a hated people, right? And so this, and just saying this brings all this together because the parable of the Good Samaritan is somebody who is an enemy who is the good neighbor.
Right.
And he's somebody from another country. He's not, anyway. So that's what matters. That's all that matters. If you're a good neighbor, as a person, as a nation, no matter what scale you bring it to, no matter what topic you're talking about, whether you're talking about just knowing if your neighbor needs something, your actual neighbor, or if it means you're being conscientious about taking care of the environment for future generations.
Right.
It's all about being a good neighbor. And if your attitude is, like hating somebody because of the way they love, you're not a good neighbor. Therefore, you're not a Christian because you're not a follower of Jesus.
That's exactly right. That's the hot take that people need to hear, right? Because we're not, and I was saying this the other day to people, I was like, I'm just going to tell people this stuff and I'm not going to be nasty about it, but I'm going to tell you what you need to hear about this and and you may not like it. You may not like it, but if no one else is telling you this, this is a huge disservice to what you believe in for this. And I think like if you dropped into our conversation, let's say someone just boom, dropped in, somebody got in the Zoom, pop, they'd be like, wow, these guys, like, they must not be into their faith at all.
No.
Right? You hear it, you're not thinking this at all.
Yeah.
That's the complete opposite. What it's true, actually.
It's that we care so much.
We care. That's exactly right.
So much. It's the intensity that we were talking about earlier.
Intensity.
You care so intensely about something that you're willing to burn it down. And I hope people don't take that in a literal way, because I'm not trying to promote another January 6th.
No.
but you're able to burn down maybe some of the ideas
The
that you used to
ideas.
hold.
Yeah.
You open your mind up to say, I'm willing to take on actual truth instead of the false traditions that have been passed down to me.
Yes. Yes.
That's the difference between science and religiosity in
Mm.
most ways. Science is constantly proving itself wrong because it's in search of the actual truth. Whereas religion is constantly trying to prove wrong right.
Right.
Like, oh, archaeologists, historians, all these people keep proving all these things were wrong. And religion keeps saying, no, it's true because the book says so.
Right. Yeah, most definitely.
you know, and it's just, and to me, once again, the Bible is so much more interesting when you know the truth about it.
Yeah, most
I,
definitely.
I think I mentioned it in the last podcast episode of mine. I read the Bible every day. I
Yeah.
do. I study it every day. And every day I find something else that I think is malarkey.
I love this, Simon. Again, something you would never hear someone say in that context, like ever. It was,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? They would say to you, Simon, you're not a good Christian. How could you say that? I'd be like, how could you not say that and question some of these things?
Yeah. Exactly.
How could you not?
Exactly. Caring about your beliefs doesn't mean coddling them. It's funny to me that I think most Christians tend to be conservative,
Right.
right? I mean, maybe not. I don't know, but that's stereotypically
It's
what
a
we think of
stereotypical thing.
in this
Yeah.
country, at least. We think of conservative, so they're calling the liberals snowflakes, but the moment you say, "Oh, well, the Bible's wrong about something," then they melt.
Right.
And it's like, how about just facing up to the facts
Yeah.
and then realigning certain things? It's Jesus still happens. His teachings still hold up. The Beatitudes.
Mm.
Jesus never said them. Not like that.
No.
He might have taught those principles, but somebody is taking a lot of poetic license, and we
Right.
know that because it was written in Greek, and there's a lot of poetic things
That's
in the
correct.
Greek that don't work in Jesus's native tongue.
Right.
Why does that matter?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. The teachings are still great. The Beatitudes are still awesome. They're still words to live by. Who cares if Jesus actually said it word for word like that or
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Who cares if Jesus ever even existed? Who cares? Because the teachings are still good.
Right.
Most of them.
There it goes. So,
Every time I just think, okay, wait a minute. There's always an exception, and that's why I think it's one of the most important things to realize that a lot of the Bible is either completely untrue or somebody's taking poetic license with
mm,
it. Because once you accept that, then you can start to say, okay, that's why there's inaccuracies within Jesus himself.
yeah.
That sometimes, he's all about love. And then other times he says some stuff that's like, that seems kind of uncharacteristic for the guy who just said this other stuff. But when you realize that there's so many people taking poetic license
Yeah.
with what he said, and that they're trying to cultural, bring about a Christian culture.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they're probably misquoting and weaponizing Jesus for the benefit of trying to build a Christian culture.
Sure.
Anyway, it just, everything kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Well, it does. Actually, I don't know if you know this person, well, know them, but like of their work, but Kristen Cobes Dumez. She's an avid speaker on her book, Jesus and John Wayne, and how
I know that book.
you know
I've
the
forgotten
book,
that
right?
name.
So
Yeah.
basically, how like conservative Christianity, extreme evangelicalism has basically made it a warrior Jesus. So
Yeah.
Jesus is Braveheart. It's William Wallace. This is a Jesus that will stick a boot up your ass. And this is a violent Jesus. And this is essentially what a far right evangelical Christianity is composed of. This is a masculine, very masculine
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is
He's
a
kicking the shit
crusader.
out of people.
Crusader Jesus,
He's
every
a
knee shall
crusader
bow.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like if you know the theology, you understand the history, it's like, what? Like like wait a minute. Like, am I reading a different thing here? It's
Exactly. You know.
they take license and create a character out of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's much like
A
picture,
caricature.
the caricature or the
Yeah.
picture of Jesus as this Italian Jesus, right? With a MAGA hat on. I saw this not that long ago. An Italian Jesus with a MAGA hat on. It's like this is like literally taking this massive jump to create a different Jesus
Yeah.
to fit the narrative.
You know, that's what religion does. That's what propaganda
That's
does.
what propaganda does. Yeah.
And so much of religion, and I wish people would understand this, is propaganda.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what religion it is. It could be the most peace-loving religion out there. A lot of it is propaganda because it's not true. It's an exaggerated version of something in order to get people to follow.
Yeah.
And no matter how good the intentions are, it's still propaganda. And I don't mean to use that word in a negative sense only, but I'm just trying to get across the point that the reason a lot of things, and we're just, the Bible is what you and I know, so I'm
Yeah.
just
Of
bringing that up.
course.
If you and I knew, some other religious
Sure.
literature better, then we'd bring that up. But the reason that so much of the Bible is composed the way it is composed is for propaganda purposes. It's to show that Yahweh is the one true
Yeah.
God, and to try and convince everyone that the Jews only ever worshipped Yahweh when we
Right.
know that's not
Right.
true.
Yeah. Of
I mean,
course.
we just know it's not. So anyway, it and so much of the New Testament is
Yeah.
propaganda for those purposes, and if we understand also how the Bible was compiled, I think a lot of people, think to themselves that there was, this, and in fact, I know this to be true, that a lot of people misunderstand the Nicene, however you say it,
Yeah.
when they composed the creed and everything, and a lot of people think that that's when they put the Bible together too, and that
Right.
it really had nothing to do with it,
No.
and people think there must have been some like a real official putting together of the text when it was really kind of
It
haphazard,
was.
especially the
Yeah.
New Testament was very haphazardly put together. And what was put in, what wasn't put in, so much of that was just preference of whoever, was
Yeah.
there at the time. And they just
Yeah.
decided, yeah, maybe not that one. And to their credit, we
Right.
probably end up with the least far-fetched,
Right. Right.
gospels and things like that.
Right.
There are a lot of other gospels out there that are, you read them, they're a little wacky,
Yeah. Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
So we probably got the least wacky version of the story of Jesus, but it's not the only version. There's
Right.
lots of other versions out there, and they, frankly, a lot of them have just as much veracity to them as the ones
Mhm.
we have.
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, none of whom wrote those
Mhm.
things, and on and on,
I know.
it's just silly. Um, that we put so much stock in things like, when I mentioned to somebody that, oh, Mark didn't actually write the Gospel of Mark, they're just like, what are you talking about? Of course he did. It's the Gospel of Mark. It's like, no, super common back then
Yeah.
for people to write under somebody else's name to try and get people to read it. And,
Right.
and so, but that doesn't mean it's not true, and it doesn't
Right.
mean it's not good, and it doesn't mean any of those things. It means it's not what people have been saying it is for all this time,
Yeah.
that we have so many false assumptions and traditions that get passed down to us. And we just need to be able to let those go. Otherwise, what happens is what you were just talking about. Religion becomes militant.
It becomes militant. Yes. It gets wrapped around whatever the narrative you want to be put out there. And so currently it's the narrative of a warrior Jesus on the far evangelical conservative spectrum for
Yeah.
that we're going to be super macho. Jesus didn't take any shit. Literally, like that's what it is. It's like a weird Toby Keith song. I mean, it's just
It's
like
so crazy.
it's so crazy to me. I'm like,
It's so
what
crazy.
are you talking
Right.
about? Like,
The guy who healed the ear of
right,
the soldier who was taking him to his death and willingly gave himself up to death to be crucified.
right. The guy who spit in the mud and put in the sand
Yeah.
and put the mud on the guy's eyes to go into the lake and then come out into sea. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a kick-ass dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was beating up guys in old barns or something. According to them, he's like he was Roadhouse. Apparently, he was
Yeah.
Patrick
Apparently.
Swayze in
Yeah.
Roadhouse. According to
Yeah.
them, like
I think Jesus would have lost every fight he was in.
yeah, of course. Like
But, I mean, that's just,
maybe he allowed that. He would have allowed to be like, all right,
yeah.
whatever, like
You know, I think people forget how many times Jesus barely escapes
right.
death. People want to throw him off cliffs and things
Yeah.
like that, because he's doing a bad reading in the synagogue and stuff. And what people forget, I think, as Christians today, because Christianity is so normalized, we forget how maybe controversial Jesus was.
Right. Right.
So if you're not down with somebody who is controversial, and not in a controversial way as in a violent way, but in who is controversial in the way that he proclaims that um that he is the Son of God.
Right. Think about the big boldness of that. Right.
People demonize the Pharisees for, not I mean, but the Pharisees were just trying to live their religion.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting about that is the Pharisees were probably the most orthodox, Jewish people at the time. And so when the New Testament mentions a Pharisee, they're just talking about somebody who's orthodox, an
Yeah.
Orthodox Jew. So if you are going to demonize the Pharisees of Jesus's time for saying that, that Jesus is being blasphemous for declaring himself the Son of God, or saying things like, if you've seen me, you have seen the Father,
Right.
things like that, then you are now saying that every prophet of the Old Testament is wrong
Right.
and is a bad guy, because they would have thought Jesus,
Yeah.
but a lot of prophets were off their rockers.
I mean, there's and continue to be anything self-appointed.
I mean, we have prophets who were street performers, who were, I mean,
Sure.
it was the Old Testament's so weird.
Oh, it's incredibly
By
weird.
today's standards, the Old Testament is so weird, and I think that's what is missing in the teaching of it at church. We teach it so boring. I don't know about
Boring.
your
Yes.
church, but they teach it in the most boring way possible to try and have it make sense to our modern Christian sensibilities.
I would say my pastor is pretty good. When I said that, I was like, wait a minute, I got to take that back. My pastor is extremely good at doing. He makes it fun, actually.
That's good.
But I
That's
would say in
good.
general, like most churches I've been to, it's extremely boring. But I think because he presents it as like he's such a flawed person. And then he looks at it and be like, you imagine when Jesus said this, you'd be like, whoa, dude. Like he'll say stuff like, really?
Yeah.
And I think I like that take, which is why I've been with that church for 20 something years, because like it's just, it feels flawed. I like that.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that what you just said, it's flawed.
It's flawed.
The Bible is so flawed.
Yeah.
Every chapter has flaws in it, and whether they're flaws of the original writers or
Yeah.
storytellers, or whether they're flaws of people who later dictated the stories or copied the stories, there's just flaws everywhere, and there's huge flaws in the way that we read them
Yeah.
because we don't understand that era and that time, and we don't understand what happened when they translated from the
That's right.
Hebrew to the either the Greek or the
Hmm.
Latin, and then to English, German, every other
Right.
language. And we just so the term lost in translation, it's
Yeah.
just it's all over the place here, and it's just so much more interesting
Yeah.
to look at the flaws and be like, wow,
Wow.
wow,
Wow.
that's some cool. I mean, genuinely, it's cool. Like
Right.
when I used to think the Bible was the word of God, it was really boring. Now that I see that it's just a bunch of dudes writing about what they think is true, and now it's really interesting.
Yeah. You see how it bleeds over to the people. Like one of the things I always appreciate, especially where I go to church or watch it online because I'm not in Vegas anymore. But like our pastor was telling a story about this guy who came up to him and was like, Pastor, I have to like, I don't know, is something wrong with me? He's like, I watched a football game this weekend and I swore a bunch of times and I drunk a beer. Like, I don't know if that's guidelight. And the pastor, he's telling this story to the whole, he goes, who cares? He literally goes, so what? And he did a sign. He's like, do you really think that's that? Like, why would that be important to God? Like, and that is the crux to me of why a lot this rigidity, this perfectionism, this is not what it's about. Like that Jesus, God cares that I dropped a very large motherfucker when somebody scored a touchdown that I didn't like.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. I mean, you really think he's up, doing tallies? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's
You're in the
like,
book. You're in the book. Write his
when you
name
watch
down.
the Rams play the Bucks, you were not happy. It wasn't a very Christian thing of you. It's like it was a human thing, yeah, but like,
I think God wants us to be human.
it wants us to be human, right?
God created humans and he called it good.
He called it good. And Jesus said, I will give you my son in human form to show
Yeah.
you. I will show you how much I love you. I'm going to give you this person. Be just like, like it's incredible, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. And Jesus humanizes religion when he takes away the
Yes.
rigidity of it, and he says, be kind to other people.
Yeah.
And he says, you did this for me, you did that for me. And they say, when do we do that? When you did it to somebody else, you did it unto me.
That's
You
right.
did it for me.
You did it for me.
That is outside of every temple and every church building. That is outside of it's not about hymns and worship. It's about being a good neighbor.
Right. We're going to stone these people. Jesus. Okay. Well, like, well,
Yeah.
you was cast the first stone, basically. It's
Yep.
never said, you never done anything wrong. You know what? Then you can go throw the stone at this person. Jesus was a smooth criminal, man. He was like, no. Like,
So I write about this in my little book I've been working on. And I write about how when Jesus says that, if we are to believe that Jesus was perfect and without sin, it was an invitation to himself to also cast the first stone. Let he who is without sin, self-referential, very meta,
yeah.
cast the first stone. Now Jesus is the only one present
Who's without
who
sin?
can
Yeah.
cast that stone,
Right.
but he doesn't do it.
No.
And I just think that is the perfect metaphor that we should be taking to God for God. If Jesus won't stone us and he is God's represent, if we've seen Jesus, therefore we've seen the Father, and Jesus won't stone somebody taken in sin, then God won't either. That's the parallel.
That's the parallel,
That's the
man.
analog that we're supposed to be getting.
No, it's a warrior Jesus. It's the guy who like he's kicking ass in a saloon regularly, man. Like
He's stoning everybody.
he's throwing everybody. He's commando. You know,
That's like
he's
his
like,
Samuel L. Jackson moment. Let he who is without sin
yeah,
cast the first stone. And he's got a
he's
stone in his hand and he's
right.
ready to cast it.
He's Pulp Fiction Jesus, man. You know, he's like in there. He's talking about Big Macs. He's assassinating people. It's like,
Oh
come
man.
on, give me a break. Like,
It's a funny parity. It's a
it is
funny
funny.
parody.
I'm like, really?
But
Like,
if anybody believes it, that's sad.
that is a sad thing. What's not sad is this is Simon, good stuff about Simon time.
Yes.
I'm running with this every single time, man. This is a
hey
great
man,
segment.
I'm into it every
Makes people
time.
listen to the end. Like, this is why I enjoy my time with Simon, is these really deep conversations, and I guess what people would consider controversial on some level. I think it's just curiosity, asking questions,
Yeah.
and getting to down to some really deep things. So thank you. I always appreciate that about you, man.
I always appreciate that about you. I always know no matter how corny the movie we're about to talk about is, we might start there. We might not even talk about it, but we will eventually get onto something that is universally, I think, interesting
Yeah.
and of worth in our conversations.
Yes.
That's why, and that's why I look forward to these conversations. Like I said, I don't like the small talk.
When's the
When's the
last time
last,
you fell in
when's the
love?
last time you were in love?
That's that's unbelievable, by the way.
I'm so clumsy today.
You
Keep
are.
hitting the
You're knocking
microphone.
stuff over and stuff. You came in hot today too. You're like, wait a minute, this light. It's
I've been
best.
really blonde lately.
It's
Really
okay.
blonde. Yeah.
It's okay. We all have me too. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
It's
I'm constantly like
well, thank you so
Simon.
much for another great conversation, man. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you so much, man. Next time, man. I look
All right.
forward to it.
Talk to you soon.
All right, man.